Good afternoon. We are now going to conduct our endorsement interview for Henderson City Mayor. I want to thank you very much for coming on behalf of Veterans in Politics International. I'll just give you a brief background about how it works. Basically, we'll introduce ourselves as panel members so you know who's asking the questions. And then after that, you'll have 5 minutes to give a background about yourself. Just a brief background, just like what do you currently do for a living, and then why you want to be Henderson City Mayor. And then after that, each panel member will ask you questions, and you'll have 4 minutes to respond to each question. Now, if you're right in the middle of answering the question, I'm not going to cut you off mid-sentence, but when the alarm goes off, I would appreciate it if you wrapped it up. So with that being said, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Jim Jonas. I'm the Director of Veterans in Politics. I've been actively involved with this organization since 2008. I've known the president of this organization since 2007. I also co-host our podcast as well. And other than that, there's really not much more else to tell you about me than that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Len.
Hi, I'm Len Connell. I'm president and CEO of RLC Veterans Assistance and Veterans Assistance Angels here in Las Vegas, Nevada. My father, Raymond Connell, is a 100% disabled Korean War veteran injured in battle. And we have had this company for 3 years. We've helped over 850 veterans obtain their disability rating from the VA. We put over $15 million into the local economy, the dollar value of the awards. We also employ 15 disabled United States veterans that were unemployed before they began to work with us. RLC Veterans Assistance sister company, Veterans Assistance Angels, is a 501c3 nonprofit, and they handle all the veterans who are indigent, insolvent, and unable to pay for any services. We raised over $150,000 in donations in Veterans Assistance Angels last year. I thank you very much for coming. I never served in the military. I'm the son of a veteran, and through helping him, I took this on as a cause. Thank you very much.
My name is Robert Faust. I'm a third-generation veteran. My grandfather was all drafted. I played professional baseball. I'm an author. I've written 2 books, and that's about it.
All right, now that you've gotten to know us a little bit, why don't you go ahead and you got 5 minutes, just like I told you before, just brief background while you're running.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's nice meeting you. You all have impressive backgrounds. My name is Frank Ficadenti. To answer your question about my background, education-wise, I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Delaware and a master's in mechanical engineering from University of Maryland. I've worked for Department of Defense, specifically the Department of the Navy, for many years, managing large procurement programs and on ships and ship systems, and testing them, and life cycle management and maintenance of ships and ship systems. And I was also their Deputy Chief Information Officer, managing 50,000 computer seats in the Navy Marine Corps Internet. And we also had a server farm that I managed. And right now, I'm currently CEO and co-founder of an independent wealth management firm, Ficadenti Tandon Asset Management. There's 2 of us, and we've been in business successfully for 22 years, managing client portfolios of stocks and bonds primarily. And starting last year, we started managing cryptocurrency portfolios, which is kind of at the forefront of, it's a new asset. And so we thought we could help out a lot of people because Bitcoin in particular has been the best performing asset in the past 10 years. So that's a little bit about my background. The reason I'd like to be mayor of Henderson is because I feel like I can make some positive changes, particularly in the area of economic development, education. I see that Nevada is ranked 49th statewide, and the Clark County school system is the largest system in Nevada, and it's also the 5th largest in the country. And to be 49th, there's a lot of room for improvement there. And same way with healthcare. There's something going on with the healthcare system here that makes it ranked 39th. And I want to get to the bottom of that and see if I can fix it, particularly in Henderson. Economic development-wise, I see things like the Fiesta Hotel and Casino sitting there right at the foot of the Beltway. As you enter Henderson, that section of Henderson, it's like a billboard saying, "Look at our blighted town." And I just think that, who knows? It's been sitting there empty for over 2 years. It could be rat infested. Who knows? I just think that's unacceptable to sit there so long empty. A lot of jobs could have been held by positions in that property. And so I just see that the local politicians, it's kind of a revolving door. I don't see a lot of improvement in the areas I just discussed, and I'd like to see if I can change things. I want to be a change agent for improvement, improve the lives of people in Henderson.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start with this question. So when you talk about Fiesta Henderson and some of the improvements that you want to see in the city of Henderson, and then you speak about education, what influence as a mayor do you actually have on that? I'm not going to go so far with the education thing right now, but specifically my question is, so Fiesta Henderson, how, as a mayor, would you impact getting that reopened or getting that taken care of? Because that's not the property of the city of Henderson. No. How would you go about doing that?
Well, I realize that it's private property, but I can't direct anything in that regard. However, I would get parties together, such as the owner, anyone that's impacted by its operation or closure, sit them in a room and say, what can we do to fix this? And get ideas and try and find a win-win situation. Provide some negotiation. Maybe there's some incentives the city can offer to the owner that would benefit taxpayers of Henderson and the owner. There's got to be a solution there instead of a big empty property at the foot of the Beltway just sitting empty. So I would just try and get all the parties together and work it out. It's a problem and it's got to be fixed.
Okay. Thank you for that. And now I just follow up with this question, then I'll let my other panel members ask the rest of the questions.
Sure.
As it pertains to education, it's no secret, okay, that education is an issue here in Nevada, and it has been for a number of years. But I need, if you're running for mayor of the city of Henderson, how does a mayor impact the Clark County School District? Like, what directly can you do as a mayor to impact it? Because I think it's more of a legislative issue than a municipality issue. But what influence can you have if you're elected mayor of Henderson in order to improve education at the CCSD level and the state level as a whole?
Well, first of all, I recognize that the primary function of the mayor is to sit on zoning, do zoning functions, make sure that any economic development is feasible within the existing infrastructure of the city. And there are other decision makers that directly affect what happens in the schools, as far as the Clark County School Board, state legislation. I recognize that. But as the mayor of Henderson, you're supposed to look out for the best influence, the best interest of the citizens. And if the schools are not doing their job, they're not properly educating the students, then the mayor should be speaking out, putting pressure on the decision makers, trying to influence them to make a change that makes sense to improve the system. Although the mayor won't have a direct authority or decision-making capacity to make direct changes, I think the mayor needs to speak out, put pressure on people that aren't doing their jobs, doing what they're supposed to be, and try and make a change to improve things. And, you should have a Rolodex. Get on the phone and call people and say, hey, what's going on with this school? It's ranked so low. Somebody's doing a poor job somewhere. What are you going to do to fix it? So it's a matter of providing leadership and influencing things that are out of the direct control of the mayor, but are in the interest of the citizens of Henderson. I don't know if that answers your question, but you have to be able to speak out on these issues, provide a voice, and try and influence the decision makers to make a positive change in these areas.
Yep, sir.
What are you running as, and what is your religious affiliation? And would you let your religion influence your decision?
Well, as far as running as, this is a non-partisan election.
Okay.
As far as what my views are, I tend to be more conservative. My history is, my background is based on risk management and due diligence. So whenever there's a problem, I have to go down the rabbit hole as deep as I need to go to find out what the correct solution is. And as far as religion goes, I'm not specifically a religious person. I believe strongly in spirituality, that something lives on, whether it's consciousness, something moves on, that we're all connected. Quantum theory has validated that. And when we die, only our bodies die, but our consciousness lives on in the infinite vastness of the universal consciousness. That's my spiritual belief.
So if you're elected mayor, what are you going to do about the click thing out there? This click thing is bad in Henderson.
The click thing?
Who runs Henderson? It's a small town. It's not always a popular vote. It gets to be pretty much who wants to do it. You're going to do it my way, rather than something that's put forward to the people to vote on out there. And what are you going to do about that?
Do you have any specifics as far as, I can make a general comment.
Well, the police department out there is a wreck.
The
police department is a wreck. They've had several officers arrested, several officers charged, and there seems to be, they had a police chief that lasted about 3 months out there. So, it gets to be like, what are you going to do to stabilize that?
Well, first of all, Henderson is ranked one of the safest cities in the country for its size. Now, if there's internal issues, I have zero tolerance for cronyism, corruption, unethical behavior. Anything along those lines, to me, is totally unacceptable, and I will fix it if it exists. If I find firsthand that exists, I will fix it. I see, we're living in troubled times right now. We have corruption on a vast scale. And it's not just here, it's all
Violence
over.
is the real problem.
Violence? Yeah, I have zero tolerance for violence. I think we need to talk to each other more and should not. I mean, the biggest example recently is this Will Smith slap on that comedian. And
That was a nothing.
I mean, but it's these people are supposed to be role models, but yet they're exhibiting behavior that shows that they're still children. They can't control themselves. So any corruption, I have zero tolerance for. I would fix it. The punishment for these things has to fit the crime, in my view.
Thank you.
Going to shift gears a little bit. My office is right between the Joker's Wild and the Skyline and Old Boulder Highway. Where
I live near there.
Yeah, that's where we are, man. We're just what is it, Wells? We're Sunset Auto, and we're smack dab in the middle of an economic opportunity zone because that whole area has been classified disadvantaged, EB2, EB3. You know about this stuff because you're a businessman. Where does this tie into veterans? Well, it would be nice to get a whole bunch of veteran-owned businesses to develop in that area because the SBA would release a ton of money in the 7A program to do that. And, the challenge that we have right now with veterans, and I'm going to step back a little bit, Vietnam War era veterans, 45% of them became business owners when they returned to civilian life. 45% of them ended their careers as managers. The Desert Storm, Desert Shield, 4% of the ones that returned are considered managers today, and 4% own businesses. So I see Henderson in a very unique position that if you take, Boulder Highway, Lake Mead Boulevard, Water Street, the entire area, go back in and redevelop it, and put veterans in there because service disabled owned businesses get a lot of preferential treatment, it could revitalize that area. Now, there's one little stick in the craw here, okay? Because of all those titanium metals plants that have been operating there, the soil is full of arsenic. And one of the reasons that it's hard to develop in that area is whoever changes ownership has to remediate that soil at their own expense, which makes it uneconomical. So I know I threw a lot of things at you, and you might not have been aware of them, but as an enterprising businessman looking for an opportunity, and as a hopefully a future statesman, how would you address that issue?
Well, first of all, if they're still producing arsenic and releasing it into the soil, that would have to stop immediately. I believe in protecting the environment. I'm not necessarily a green person, but when we're poisoning the ground with arsenic, that eventually will get into the groundwater. I don't know if it'll get down into Lake Mead, but that's a problem. That's a big problem. And so I think it would require some study to see exactly what the scope of a cleanup effort would be. Maybe get the EPA involved, get some resources there. They have a super fund, I understand, that maybe we could tap into to do that. So there's some options out there. There's some resources. Maybe the state has some resources. But if we have a pollution issue with the ground, and arsenic is highly toxic, I think cleaning that up is the first order of business. Stopping the continuation of spewing out toxins, cleaning up what's there, and then looking at redevelopment going forward that benefits the community and helps veterans at the same time.
Yeah. And just to dovetail on there, as a service disabled veteran-owned business, the city of Henderson approved us to get 1,200 square feet of the Wells Fargo building. So we're actually getting 2 offices in there at a greatly subsidized rate by the city, and we congratulate them for doing that for us. But now moving forward, Water Street is starting to renovate itself again, and I'm just wondering if it's a flash in the pan or it's going to be sustainable. So as mayor, what would your plans be for the Water Street area to not make that just a flash in the pan development around the sports arena, something that would last and be sustainable?
Well, I think we'd have to see. It would take some study, see exactly what zoning proposals are on the table right now, what property is available for redevelopment, and see if we could get some proposals to make some changes that will increase economic activity in that area and keep it going. But as far as specifics, I can't say right now. I don't know enough about what exists on the table and exactly how much property we have for redevelopment. But it's definitely an opportunity to increase economic activity in the area, and it'll spill over from Water Street once it gets going. And that's what we really want. We want Water Street to be like an anchor, and then from there expand out and improve the community, improve economic activity, develop more business activity.
We got to give chomps to the Rainbow Club in Henderson because, as you know, it turns 60 years old today.
Oh,
founded back in 1962. So
congratulations!
Got
to
great
them.
food. Yeah, they're okay.
Okay, so this question is something that's I've brought up to every mayor in the valley, and I brought up to every city council in the valley, and I get the same answer, and I understand where they're coming from. But one of my main concerns is permits. Building permits are a real issue as far as I understand, COVID caused a backlog, and there's a huge backlog in the city of Henderson as well as far as getting permits to add on things to your home, to get things fixed. Like pulling permits is literally harder than pulling teeth right now. What would you do as a mayor, since you will be a part of the city council board as well, to try to clear up some of this backlog so we can get back to normal as far as development?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize the permitting process was so lengthy. And if COVID has caused it, then there's a backlog. There's a couple of things. First of all, we need to see what we can do to streamline the permitting process. I'm familiar with things like, I don't know if you've heard of the Six Sigma process. It's what Deming taught the Japanese on manufacturing. But, we need to map out what the process is, what the permitting process is, and see if there's steps in there that are redundant or wasteful or time consuming for their value, relative to their value, and see if we can just reduce the time from streamlining the basic permitting process. The second thing would be to look at the human resources, the people involved in the city that have to review the permits, and see if we need to provide additional resources in that area and provide a priority. Because by delaying or having delays in permitting, that impacts economic activity. It impacts jobs, particularly like carpentry, plumbing, electrical, cement, all those things. We're delaying economic activity. And I'm not saying that we should, just rubber stamp all the requests, all the permit requests. I'm saying let's do it right and streamline and provide additional resources where needed.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to commend you on that, because here's the thing. And I won't call them out by name on the air because they're not here to defend themselves, but out of current mayors and other mayoral candidates in other jurisdictions, you're the only one that actually answered that question or even attempted to. So I appreciate that.
Well, I think that is because of my background. I'm used to solving big problems impacting large organizations. And to me, that's a very simple issue. It's a simple fix. And you have to keep metrics. You have to say, here's how many permits we started with, and keep some numbers to see if you're improving the time to process permits. And that way you have a feedback loop to see if your changes are working. And if they're not, you make more changes and you find out why they're not working. But you have to start somewhere. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions?
Yeah, what else should I'll think of a couple.
Nobody's asked me about the homelessness.
Oh. Whoa,
We're
a question.
you now.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? What about that homelessness? Go for it.
Well, it's a problem. I haven't seen. I mean, I know Las Vegas has a lot of homeless. I know there's tunnels in Las Vegas where homeless are basically, they're furnishing fully outfitted homes with electricity down in there. And some of that's starting to spill over into Henderson. But homelessness is a significant problem nationwide. We got a lot of homeless not too far away in LA. It's huge, and it's growing almost exponentially in those areas. But the reason people become homeless is they have a financial hardship or some kind of mental issue or drug addiction. So the first thing, you have to provide temporary shelter for them. You've got to get them off the streets. You need strong anti-camping regulations, number one, so you can legally remove their tents and relocate them in a temporary shelter. And probably one of the most important things is, they have to, each one has their own set of issues. So you put them in rehab, you find some kind of job for them, and then give them a little bit more permanent shelter. But and then the key, and then you get them, maybe they need to be in a mental institution. So you have to look at what the resources are locally, and might have to go to the state for some of those resources to relocate those people. But one of the biggest things that's important is assigning caseworkers to these homeless people. Because if you have a very active caseworker following up on the homeless, particularly with drug addiction rehab, statistically, with strong caseworker involvement, you're going to significantly reduce the chances that they relapse. So that's very important. And that takes resources too. But you got to look at what resources are available. If it's too much of a strain on the local economy, we go outside and see if we can get additional resources from the state or the federal government. But that's the way I look at homelessness and how to approach solving it, at least in Henderson.
Hopefully to cure it a little bit, my background was that I was engaged to be married to a very, 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 very wealthy heiress, and she was a UCLA graduate with honors, cheerleader, surfing instructor, all stuff like that. Her and her family got into a head-on car wreck 5 months before I got married, and her head went through the windshield, and she basically, all of her frontal lobes were smashed in. And she lived for a couple of years later, but the only problem was, without these frontal lobes, she had no impulse control. There was absolutely no filter on her. So if she wanted to give you a kiss, she'd jump over here and grab you and give you a kiss, If she wanted to smack you, she'd do the same thing, So unfortunately, we did try to keep her in institutions because she was a danger to herself and others. Also, because she was a surfer, she was physically a very strong person. She was 5'11". What ended up happening to her was that they kept releasing her, not because they ran out of money, but because she had the rights of an individual not to be incarcerated. So lawyers kept springing her and springing her and springing her. What happened at the end was that she was killed in an alley because they just put her on the sidewalk and let her walk away. And eventually somebody got into an altercation with her and just beat her to death, you know? So what you say about helping these homeless and whatever else, anybody can be homeless. And the weird thing about the veterans, okay, they don't become homeless because they can't afford to live anywhere. In battle, and my esteemed Marines here will bear me out, the enemy blows up the buildings where they know all the Americans are. So if you want to survive the battle, the last place you want to be in the building where all the soldiers are. And the second thing is that they blow up the water. They do not blow up the water heater. They do not blow up the generator. They do not blow up the gas tanks. They kill the people because they want to keep the other stuff. So a lot of them get under homeless, and I'm going to say this Vietnam veteran here will probably corroborate me out, because they're not going to bomb the overpass. You know, they're going to kill the Americans, but they're not going to bomb the overpass. So people that are in these advanced stages of PTSD, they say, hey, they're not going to shoot at me over here. This is where I'm going. And that's the reason that they get there. I treat
Makes
PTSD.
sense.
Yeah, I treat PTSD with over 800 people in my business, you know, so there's a lot of things to consider, you know, and a lot of reasons that they do get there, but it's good to see you embracing this, you know, and doing that.
Yeah.
Robert, you got another question?
You know, I think that people have a right to be homeless. They have a right to wander around and do what they want. And, you know, I think this is out of line because, you know, this isn't something that we should do. But I got to tell you right now, there's a lot of homeless people that are homeless just because they want to be homeless.
I'm sure that's the case in some situations. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every case needs to be looked at separately for, you know, its own merits.
Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and
One more thing.
no, go ahead, Robert.
What do you have to say about teachers that try to be too close and too friendly with the students? I'm for just a good education. You go there, you learn, and then that's it. And these teachers today are trying to get involved with these kids and trying to what sex they are, and that stuff. And can you just take a minute to reflect on that?
Well, I think we've heard a lot of stories and we've seen a lot of videos. If you look on YouTube, and a lot of censored sites that YouTube has kicked people off because they're telling a different story or they claim it's misinformation. But I think teachers need to realize that they're in a certain swim lane, and that swim lane is to educate math, science, English, and history. Well, English, reading, writing. Once they go beyond that, I think they're treading they're going down a path that could be contrary to what the parents want them. They might be going where the parents don't want them to go. I mean, most parents, I have 2 kids. I've raised 2 kids, sent them to college. Most parents want a decent education for their kids. They want them to know how math, good reading skills, grammar, and have some knowledge of history and science. Once they get out of that swim lane, they're wasting time, number one, because they're not focusing on the important educational elements. And they're treading in areas that are the parents' domain, I think. So.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for coming in. It's
one last thing.
No, you can after I get done. I know it's tough, like being there all by yourself, sitting on the hot seat. I really appreciate the fact you took the time to come in, though. But yeah, go ahead and add whatever you need to add.
I appreciate you having me here today. But I just wanted to. I'm very proud of this. My father's he's a World War II veteran, and he turned 100 last October. And here's a letter that you can have this if you can. All right, I'll give it to you afterwards.
Yeah,
It's signed. It's signed by the president, congratulating him on his 100th birthday. And outside of that, he could end up being the oldest living World War II vet, because understand, you would know this more than me, that currently the oldest World War II vet is like 106, and there's only like 5 or 6 between 100 and 106. And although my he's starting to lose his marbles a little bit, physically he's in good shape, so he could end up being the oldest living World War II vet, which is amazing to me.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. With that, we're going to go ahead and conclude this endorsement interview for Henderson City Mayor, and we want to thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.